Hello everyone and welcome. This is SharePoint Power Hour. We are live. This is a show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central, streaming live. It's on a Google Hangout and it's also on our YouTube channel. This is our SharePoint team at Rackspace, and our YouTube channel is SharePoint RAX. And basically Power Hour is a show that we do every week at 11 Central, and it's business solutions. It's things that you can do out of the box in SharePoint. We're not going to go into programming. We're not going to go into hardcore server admin. It's all this other stuff, and there are plenty of topics. This is episode number 64, so we've been doing this for over a year now. We have tons of episodes out on our YouTube channel for you to peruse. So there, you can watch them live and ask questions as we go, and you can go watch all the past episodes. So if you're watching on YouTube, there is a little yellow link that takes you over to the Google Hangout. So if you want to be able to do the Q&A, then I recommend clicking that. So when you go over to the Google Hangout, then it's got a little, it's got towards the top right of the video of us, you're going to see like some little squares, and if you click those little squares, one of them is going to be like a little app that looks like a little price tag, a little icon of a price tag, and that's where we share hyperlinks sometimes. And the other one is the Q&A, which probably it looks like a little, like a little blurb, like a voice blurb that you're saying something, one of those icons. So if you click that, that'll open up the Q&A panel, and that is how you're going to communicate with us. So that's why we love doing the show as a live show, so that we can, get questions from you guys as we go and have discussions about it and make it very interactive. So I'm Laura Rogers. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and this is my team at Rackspace, and I'm going to go through and have everybody introduce themselves. So we're going to go, the order that you guys show on my screen is Kevin, then Ryan, then Steven, then Tanya, then Tavis. So I'm going to go ahead and I muted a couple of you because I heard some echo, so I'm going to unmute you guys. All right, let's see. Kevin, can you unmute yourself, Kevin? No. There you go.
I am Kevin Hughes, SharePoint architect on the SharePoint services team here at Rackspace, based out of Kansas City. Been working with Microsoft solutions for a couple of decades, SharePoint exclusively, since 2007, and my role here is to come up with answers to customer problems and see if we can't fix them using SharePoint.
Okay, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Keller. I am the branding guy on the SharePoint solutions team here. I make SharePoint look a little less SharePointy most of the time. I've been doing that for, about 3.5 years or so. Been working with SharePoint for 7 or 8 years now. So kind of getting up there.
All right. Okay, let's see. Steven? I can't hear you, Steven. It shows that you're not muted in Google Hangouts. You had this issue yesterday.
How about now?
Yep.
Two machines sharing the mic. I'm Steven Wilson. I'm with the SharePoint Business Solutions team. I do mostly infrastructure and administration kind of stuff. I also do a lot of helping people with their migrations, getting going on their first SharePoint environments, just general questions about how things should be architected inside of SharePoint and in the server environments, before you get into the specialist areas for a lot of our other business consultants.
Hey, Tanya. Let's see, I think, so you're muted. You can unmute yourself. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Tanya, newest member of Laura's team right before Kevin, and I am our internal SharePoint admin for our Rackspace farm. So I primarily work with end users, very similar to what Laura does, just doing it not quite as long, just started with SharePoint this year, but just encouraging your users to use the out-of-the-box components and trying to educate them about all the things that SharePoint can help them do.
All right, Tavis.
Hello, my name is Tavis Level, and I'm your friendly neighborhood business intelligence developer, trying to turn your heaps of data into useful information that you can use. And I've been working with BI on the Microsoft stack for about 10 years.
All right, so back on to me. And I've been using SharePoint about 10 years. I written some books. I put a link to my InfoPath book that Dervish Shadran and I wrote a couple of years ago. Okay, so it's an InfoPath 2010 step-by-step book, but it's still relevant because they didn't change anything from InfoPath 2010 to 2013. So if you're looking for a good book that's got step-by-step instructions on learning InfoPath, I recommend it. So today's demo is for absolute beginners who are just learning SharePoint and InfoPath, just to show you what the heck InfoPath is and kind of show you around in there and get you familiar with kind of what everything is and some gotchas and just some basic info. Because you know, I teach on our SharePoint.rackspace.com/training. I teach a power user training class, and every time I teach this class, which is about once a month, I get about half the class that has, or more, that has never even seen or heard of InfoPath. And so it's this need to know this absolute basic information. So I figured I'd do a whole power hour on it. So I'll go ahead. I've got like 2 or 3 screens on slides to show you. Let me go ahead and share my screen and get that going. There we go. Okay, can you guys see it? Yep, I assume you can. All right, so, and you guys, my coworkers that are in there, that you can see if anybody asks a question. Sometimes I can't see those whenever I'm sharing my screen, so just shout it out and let me know if you see those pop up, please. Okay, so this is just, again, it's only a couple of slides, so this is just InfoPath on SharePoint List for Beginners. InfoPath is a forms product that lets you quickly design forms with easy-to-use tools. It is part of Microsoft Office 2013 Professional, and only the person designing the forms needs to have this InfoPath software on their computer. Everybody else who's filling out these forms that I'm talking about today is just going to be filling them out in the browser. This all applies to, it only applies to the enterprise version of SharePoint. So if you have the free version, Foundation, or if you have Standard, you're not going to be able to do what I'm demoing today. So this is only for enterprise, and if you're on Office 365, this is for E3. So you have enterprise, you have, which gives you the ability to have these browser-based forms that people can fill out. So I'll go ahead and talk about the 3 types of forms that we can do in InfoPath. We can take a SharePoint list and just customize the way that looks using InfoPath Designer. We also have a different type of form called publishing a form to a form library, and Joelle Farley is going to be demoing that actually next week. We're doing a whole power hour on that, and that is the more advanced. So when a list form won't cut it and you have a lot of different, more complicated things you want to do with your form, that's going to be the next level you go to. And then we also have one more way that you can use InfoPath forms. And when you're doing SharePoint 2010 workflows, even if you're doing SharePoint 2010 workflows in SharePoint 2013, if you have workflow forms that are associated with your workflow, like an initiation form or a task form, those can be customized using InfoPath. So, and let's see. So when we, how do we do this? How do we even get to the screen? To customize a list form in InfoPath, you go to any SharePoint list, and except for the ones I have listed here, you go to a SharePoint list and you go to the List tab, and you go click this big purple Customize Form button that you might have seen before. So you cannot do this with calendars, though. And a document library kind of has a form associated with it, like the view or like the edit properties form. That can't be customized with InfoPath. And then any lists or libraries that have any managed metadata columns at all, you cannot use InfoPath. You cannot customize those with InfoPath. So basically, it's a technology that's going away. It's antiquated. It's an old technology. It doesn't support managed metadata. There's a lot of things that it's been around forever. It's been around for 10 years or almost 15 years. It's just old, and so Microsoft's phasing it out. It's going to be depreciated in the year 2023, so you've got a little while to figure out something else. Microsoft announced at the last SharePoint conference that they have a new technology that they're going to be putting together called FOSL, F-O-S-L, for Forms on SharePoint Lists. So that's the last statement Microsoft made about that. It just doesn't exist yet. So in the meantime, you can still use InfoPath. I mean, still customize your list forms because it's there. It's fairly easy, and if you have the enterprise version, you know, I don't think it's going to hurt. It's when you start getting into more advanced forms and form library forms and possibly doing custom development in your forms and doing crazy things like that, that's when you're going to have to worry about the whole upgrade path. But just a couple of simple customizations that I'm showing today, I think are fine. So I'll go ahead and get back over to, I've got my virtual machine running, so I'm going to pull up that. And I'm going to create, I'm going to pull up a task list in here, and I'm just going to just edit a task form, just because those are super simple and common. And that's what I'm going to go to in my little site here. It's making me authenticate like 5 times just to go to it. There we go. Good grief. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, and here's my VM right here. I'm just maximizing that. There we go. Okay, here's my home page of my little intranet that I use for demos. Can you guys see my screen, or do I need to share it again?
I cannot see it.
See my camera, right? Okay. That's funny. As soon as I exited out of PowerPoint, it automatically assumed I didn't want to share my screen anymore. Okay. Make sure I'm sharing the right one. Okay. Gotta get everything situated. Okay. Okay. So now you're seeing this Contoso homepage, right? Okay. All right, I'm going to go to a list. So I'm going to go to, I'm actually going to go ahead, instead of creating, just using a list that I've got that already exists, I'm going to go ahead and create a new task list, just so that I'm starting from scratch and just so it's exactly what you would see and just doing some basic stuff in there. So here's what you do. You click the little gear at the top right, you choose Add an App, and the app that I'm going to add is a task list. In SharePoint 2013, everything that we called lists and libraries before, there are just all called apps now. And click Create. And now I have this big long list of all the crap in my site, and here's my list that I just created. All right, so this is a task list. And I'll show you just what the basic out-of-the-box form looks like. So I've got my task name. I'm going to go ahead and fill out these fields so you'll be able to kind of get a better idea of what it looks like. And I'm going to assign this one to Joelle since she's not here. I don't know why it's not giving me her as an option in there. Let me see. Maybe not. There's Shane. I'll give that to him. All right, and then this is the Show More thing. This is just a new thing that exists in SharePoint 2013 tasks. It's just, for some reason, they hide all this bottom part of the form when you first start filling out a task. So it really has nothing to do with the customizations that we're going to do, but I had to click that just to be able to fill the rest of this out. So I filled out a task, and like if I create another one, I'll do another one that's like test 2. That's overdue, and you can see that in SharePoint 2013 it's going to automatically have some color coding that's going to show the overdue ones in a different color, and it's really neat. So in progress, and so you can see the due date is red if it's overdue, so that's kind of nice. Alright, so this is what the form looks like though. I saw the new task form. That's what the form looks like when I'm filling out a new one. And then we have, when I click to look at an existing one, that's the display form. And then when I click to edit an existing one, I can go edit over here, or I can go in the ribbon here and edit the item. And that's how we can go edit an existing one. All right, so that's what the out-of-the-box form looks like. So now we're going to go into InfoPath. So the easiest way to do that is just you create your list, and you go to the List tab. And here is the magic button. So you click Customize Form. If you click Customize Form and it doesn't do what mine is doing, oh, I've got a data type that is not going to be compatible with InfoPath Designer. So I'll show you that in a second. Okay, but if your computer, if you click that InfoPath Form button and it does not open up InfoPath Designer, first of all, you might not have InfoPath Designer. So it's Microsoft Office Professional 2013. That's part of that. And second of all, you're not going to be able to do this if you don't have the enterprise version of SharePoint. This is telling me that the following fields in my SharePoint list are not supported because of their data type, and they won't be available. So if you have managed metadata also in your list, it's not going to be able to let you use that data type either. The cool thing about that is even though it has one or two fields that's not letting you customize in your form, it still takes you to InfoPath. It still lets you do something. So it's not a showstopper. So this is, and I'll go ahead and I'll address that other field in a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and start showing you around in the interface here. So once we open our form and we're designing it in InfoPath Designer, just kind of let's stop and familiarize ourselves with what's going on in here. So this looks, if you're used to using Microsoft Office programs, this should be very familiar to you. I mean, look at your Home tab up here. You have all these different ways of formatting text, like changing the fonts and colors and font sizes and alignment, all just like Microsoft Word. You've got some font styles. And then you have copy and paste and format painter and those things. Bulleted lists. So all this up here should be familiar. Then we start getting into this little controls dealio over here, and we can even expand it to see some more controls. So controls are all these little things on the form, like a text box and a date picker and a people picker and a number box and a drop-down box, and even a button is a different type of control. So all of those are the controls. We also see where it says fields over here on the right side of the screen. Those are the existing fields in our SharePoint list. So when I created the task list, it already had, task name, start date, due date, assigned to, and all those types of fields, and it's got a little icon next to each one showing what type of field it is. So with my design surface here, I have the ability to, it's very freeform. I can pretty much do whatever I want. So I can type freeform text on here, and I can even drag fields onto the form where I want to see them. So I'm gonna show you a couple of things in just editing the existing form, just quick things that you might like to do just to make your form a little prettier. And then I'll show you, I might just like completely wipe it clear and show you how you might want to start all over and kind of make it your own and make it look completely different. So at this top, I'm going to say this is a task form. So whatever type of form you have the ability to put a pretty little title up at the top. So I can even format it using these little font styles, again, just like in Word, and I can center it just like in Word. So that's one way of just kind of making it a little prettier. And then another thing we commonly use is these little page design options with all these colors. So I can pick a color. The first time I do this, it's just going to say it's going to change it to an Office 2013 style. Yeah, that's fine. So then it gives me those colors. I can click through all the different ones and see what those are going to look like this. So, I can kind of pick one that's got similar colors to the company that I work in or something like that. Another thing that I can do is I can quickly, again, branding this, making it look custom, like it belongs in my company. I can put my company logo in here. So I'll just say insert a picture, and then it's going to say, actually it's going to give me pictures that are just on this server that I'm in right now. So let's see if I can find, I've got an AdventureWorks logo right here. So I'll go insert that. So whatever size that picture is, that's just what size it's going to put it in my form. So I could take this whole thing and maybe align it to the left and do some things. And just like in Office products, I'm dealing with a table here. So this is kind of mashed together here. This is a table that I'm in. And all these are cells, columns and rows in my table. So what I can do is I can take this top little section here. You guys, are there any questions yet? Just let me know. Okay, you can take this little section at the top and I can split these cells in half into 2 columns. Oops, and then that way I've got, well, the whole purpose of what I was trying to do was to split just that top one, but I split like the entire thing. But what I want to do is have this top cell split into 2 columns. So I can, let's see if I try that again, maybe. 2 columns, 1, yeah, no, it's going to do the exact same thing. All right. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to insert. Basically, see, this is a table inside of a table. See right here? So this down here is a table inside of my other table. So when I start messing with my tables and when I start kind of doing what I was just doing and inserting a row, you can end up really getting into the weeds with messing around with your tables and your cells and getting everything to look just right. So I'm going to take just this whole table and I can actually cut it, and I'm pasting it like outside of everything. So that way I can take this and, add another row to it and split it in half and things like that, and not worry about messing up kind of that other thing that I have going down there. So now I've split this into 2 cells. I can take my text and just drag it around. Again, this should all be very familiar to you guys because, again, this is all, it works the exact same way that other Office programs work. So it's very freeform. So I'm typing, I'm inserting pictures, and I'm inserting tables and fields. So I can take this and cut it and just paste it back in here. So that was just one way of kind of getting around in here and getting it to look the way I want it to look. I can take my fields, so if I delete my task name text box here, don't worry. If the field is not showing on this form, I didn't delete, the field is not gone. All my field names still exist over here. You see they're shown here, so I can take a field and drag it back onto the form like that. Of course, it put the label along with it. It's trying to help me out, but I already have a label over here, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to start over and I'm going to delete this whole entire thing, and I'm going to show you kind of what I go through when I'm doing a new form to kind of show you how I like to work in here and lay things out and make it look pretty. So I'm going to start with my page design tab, and I have these pretty little page layout templates, and I usually like to start with one of those. My favorite is the color bar down the left side. I just think it looks very professional, and like kind of depending on what theme I have selected, see, depends on what color the bar is going to be. That's like a good LSU theme, so I went to LSU. It's my purple and gold. And then I can take this whole thing and I can center it if I want to. So it gives me a nice standard width there. And this is where I can, again, freeform type in here, task form, or whatever your type of request form is or whatever it is. And then watch this. I can go into my insert tab and have all these, this is where I have all these different things I can insert. So I have tables here that are just pre-configured. So I can create a custom table. I can just go say, I want a table with 3 rows and 3 columns, and bam, and there's my table. But I have all these nice little pretty ones that I can insert that InfoPath has made them pretty for me already. So I can go put those in my form as well. So I don't know, I kind of like using those. I'm just going to pick one over here, and you can see it's got a nice little pretty purple heading there. So the forms that you're going to be dealing with, a lot of forms that we see in our business have logical sections to them. So I like to insert one of these little sections for each sort of logical section in my form, and it makes it look very professional, doesn't it? So this is where that's where I can start, and by laying it out and making it look sort of organized, and then from there you can put all your fields where you think that they should show in the form. So I can take my task name and just drag it. Now when I'm dragging a field from over here onto the form, it lights up to show me where I'm going to when I let go, where's it going to go. If I see two cells next to each other lit up, that means when I drop it on here, it's going to put the label on the left and then the field, the box on the right. But I think that wastes a lot of real estate. When I'm doing my form, I like to just have the label right above the text box. That way I'm not wasting a bunch of space and I don't have just all this emptiness in the middle. So I can, instead of letting go when it's two cells next to each other, I can go all the way to the left and let go, and then there's my task name field. It's a little text box for people to fill out. So any questions so far? Anybody? Go Tigers! Yay, Lori! Thanks. Not like you went there. So thanks, Lori, for coming. By the way, Lori and I, Lori Gowan is in the chat in the little Q&A window there. She and I started learning InfoPath kind of at the same time in a company we used to work at like a long time ago. So another thing I wanted to point out while I'm in here is before I go any further and start putting all this different stuff on the form, I wanted to show you another little cool thing. Every little text box and date picker and everything, every control has additional settings that you can do on that control. So I can see a lot of that stuff here in the ribbon, things that I can do to it. I can also go to the properties. So I just like going to the properties because that, to me, that's just got everything right there in there, and I don't have to go find stuff in the ribbon. So I'm used to going to the properties screen. A shortcut is to go Alt-Enter, and then I can quickly see, just quickly get to it. So the validation cannot be blank. That's going to be whether the field is required or not. And then I can even type in a default value if I wanted to. So some of this display stuff is, do I want it to be read-only? Do I want it to be multi-line? If I check multi-line, then that means they'll be able to just keep typing and the box will expand as they go down the page, which is kind of neat. So I never put like really big text boxes on my forms. I always just use a regular single line of text box and just put it on multi-line. That way it just keeps expanding as they type, so you don't waste a bunch of real estate. I can even limit my text box so that when they get to whatever the limit is, if it's a zip code and you have 5 characters or something, do you want to automatically move them to the next control when they reach the limit so they can just keep typing? So that's kind of neat. And then you have your alignment. This alignment is actually the alignment of the text inside of that text box. So that's how granular I can get here. These placeholder things don't really work. That's sort of a residual thing from what's called InfoPath Filler, which is a program where people would have to have InfoPath software to fill out forms on their computer, and they wouldn't be able to fill them out in the browser. So this little placeholder thing is not compatible with the browser. It's not going to show something in the box before they type it. I also have size here, which is just pixels, and percentages and stuff. Screen tip. So I like to go to the little advanced tab and do a screen tip sometimes, because that's, instead of having a placeholder, that's just an easy way that you can say, type the task name or whatever. And the screen tip means that when they hover over that box, that's the tiny little text that's going to pop up telling them what that box is for. I have input and recognition is going to be if I am using a tablet or something, for if they're filling this form out with their finger on a tablet or whatever. And then, so this browser forms is not important. That's way advanced. So I'm going to go ahead, and so all I did really was I did type the task name as the screen tip here. And I'm going to, what was one other thing that I wanted to do? Oh, the size is something I wanted to address. So kind of one thing that I see people doing in here is you start putting a bunch of fields on here. I'm going to go and drag the start date and due date here. Oops, what did I do? Undo. Put the due date in the right place. There we go. So what I see people do is they start messing with the widths and things like that. So like I could take the task name and just start trying to drag it like wider and narrower and things like that, and really kind of get you basically when you start messing with the widths of these things, you really just end up wasting a ton of time. Believe me, I've wasted hours and hours of my life on these things. So what I like to do is just keep all of these as just, instead of having specific widths in here, just keep them at 100%. That way, when you're working in your table here, you just change your table cell sizes and you arrange things by cells instead of like messing with all like dragging the edges of things and all trying to get things to look right, because again, it's just going to waste so much time. So like with this one, I want task name to be wider. I can merge these two cells together. And now my task name, since I had it as at 100%, it just fills up. It just expands to fill up that whole box. So also, in addition to some of those properties that we looked at when we looked at the property screen, you have the layout, which is where you can start doing borders and shading and height and width and things like that. Height and width, again, I just recommend leaving them on 100%. But shading and borders is what you can do to make your little text boxes and things look a little prettier. So I can say, click on borders and say maybe I want to pick a different color. I want a purple. I'm going to go ahead and just use the colors that are in the theme that I have. I'm going to say purple and then click OK. So now my task name box, it kind of stands out a little. And then when they type a task in here, what if I want that to be bold? So then I click the text box and I choose bold over here. So now I'm making it a little more custom. So I'm going to say fill out task info. I'm just going to put that as my heading in here and maybe put that over to the left. So all I've done so far is just drag a few controls onto the field. I'll go ahead and say assign to. For some reason with the people pickers, it doesn't automatically put the label, but it does for everything else. Assign to, % complete, and then just like any other table, I can keep adding rows to this one. So if I hit tab, it'll just create a new row here. So I can keep adding to this one. And to work in this table, I can insert above, insert below, split cells, merge cells, select cells and columns, and do that. So I'm going to select this whole table and just get rid of that bottom table. Maybe I don't need it. And I'm going to show you, just from what we have so far, I'm going to show you what that looks like in SharePoint and how different it looks. So real quick, let's go back to what it looks like just out of the box. It's just white, and it's just text down the left side, and it's just fields down the right side. So now all I have to do in InfoPath is close it. I can do this little X at the top right and just click Save and Publish, and that's going to do everything for me. So I don't have to know anything about what list it's on, because it already knows that, because I started from the list itself, and that's all it was. It just saved and published, and now I've got a new customized form. So I clicked Customized Form, made a few changes, and then when I close the form and choose Save and Publish, that's what implements the form. So now when I choose New Task, it's going to pull up this form. So see how pretty that is? So test stuff. And remember, I only added a few fields to it, so it's not, I didn't add the rest of them. So I'm going to have to finish that. But I'll go ahead and fill some of this stuff out. I think Todd needs a task. And save. Okay, so now again you can see it's just part of my list. It's just listed along. And those ones that were in there before that I filled out with the generic form, they have the look and feel of this new form. So notice that my display form, remember I just clicked on an item just to look at it like this. The display form now looks like my custom form, but see how I went out of the way to make this task name look like stand out a little bit more? And these other ones just have a very, very light gray text box around them. So that's where you might want to go spend some time, going in there and making your text boxes stand out a little more. Or another thing we can do is, we'll go back into the form, is we can go, change kind of the way that the table looks so that maybe it has lines instead of having to go mess with every text box. Oh, why does it keep doing this? I wonder if my like my domain controller in here is rebooting or something. This is my virtual machine, like I said, and let me see. No, it looks like it's fine. It didn't do this to me the first time I clicked to customize the form. But yours probably will, because it's you got to authenticate to SharePoint through here to do it. All right, so now for the task name, I went in there and made the task name box itself a little bigger. But what I could do instead is I can go just select all the rows in this table, and then go to the Layout tab up here and pick borders. So I'm going to go, kind of customize the way my borders look in here. So I'll just pick this this dark purple color and say I want then, highlight the rows, the borders there. And now it's got purple lines between each row. And then maybe I might want to get rid of this dark purple border. So I could take the border that exists on this other one, and just like in other Office programs, I can do a format painter. And let's see, I don't know if maybe I didn't do that correctly. Format painter. Oh, it didn't paint the format. It took away the bold though, so it painted the format of what the text that would have been in here though. It just didn't paint the format of the box itself. So whatever. I'm just gonna fix that. Change it back to whatever the theme color was. All right. So now that we've got a couple of fields on here, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple, just finish adding the rest of these here. So I put assigned to, % complete, description. Description, I might want to make that across 2 cells. So when I drop it on here, I just can drop it on the left cell, and then I can merge these two together. So for those of you who are watching who are brand new to InfoPath, is this helpful? Is this useful? Is this are you going to go and try this if you've never tried it before? Or any input from you guys as to what you think about any of this stuff? Just let me know. I'll just put it in the little Q&A. Hopefully you can find the Q&A. Ever since they added that little app that lets you share hyperlinks, like the Q&A is a little more obscured, so it's harder for people to find it, but it's in there. All right, so with forms, as people are filling them out, again, I showed you some settings that exist on the little text box, but you have settings on your little date picker boxes too, and depending on what type of field it is, you have different. You have a couple of different settings. So for this one, it's a date picker. I can put a default value in there if I want to do a default date. So as I'm looking at like default value, and I'm looking at, oops, what was that? Hold on. And I'm looking at like in my people field, it's got, people only, people in groups. This kind of looks familiar, doesn't it? So I'm seeing some of the same exact settings here in InfoPath that seem like they're duplicate of settings that I see in my SharePoint list, right? So this is where I'm going to start talking to you about where things can go wrong and where things can get really confusing in here. All right. So when and this is one that I've seen from happen to customers before. Right now, this people picker has allow multiple selections selected, and it says allow selection of people only. All right, let's go look at that field in my list. So I'm going to go to my list settings and go look at my assigned to column here. So go look at that. It says allow multiple selections, yes. Allow section of people only in there, or it says people in groups. So what I've seen happen, and I'm going to close this and not save any changes, is that people go change this. So no, I don't want multiple selections. I'm just going to change that one thing. And then they start using the form. And then they start getting errors because now, see, someone's trying to fill out the form, and the fields in the form and the settings in the SharePoint list do not match. So the form needs to be updated. Sean says, my concern with customizing a form in this way is then I'm potentially setting a precedent that I would have to customize every form. That is very true, Sean. He says, is that something that I worry about? I usually, when I'm dealing with forms, the forms that I'm customizing like this are around a specific business solution. Like people go to a site and they fill out a travel request, or they go to a site and they fill out, like the new hire process that it did, or something like that. So to them, the people that are participating in this business process, to them that's like a custom application that they're working in, where they're filling out forms and things. So I think that to the end user, that seems like it was maybe developed and it's a custom app, and that's a special thing having to do with that particular form. So and even the task lists and stuff that are involved in that same process. So I don't usually go around and just randomly customize forms like an announcements list, or just a random task list, or just any just super simple list that's perfectly fine the way it is. So I haven't seen that happen. I have seen to where, let me think. Do any of you have any other opinion about that? It's usually you don't go to InfoPath unless you have a specific reason that the form doesn't do what you want it to do. Does that make sense, Sean? So I would tell your end users that when you are talking to them, if their only reason of to customize their form in InfoPath is just to change the color or something, I mean, I don't know, that it's super simple for them to do that, so maybe allow them to do that, but it's not really necessary. So like, for example, I was working with a customer yesterday where I had a shipping request, and when the shipping request comes in, the person receiving it, or as they're filling it in, it has a checkbox to say, is this an international shipment? And if it is, they have additional fields to fill out related to it being an international shipment. But otherwise, they wouldn't want them to see those fields. So to me, that's a perfectly good example of using an InfoPath form. Now, we haven't gotten any of that logic today yet, but there are all kinds of neat rules and logic that you can build into InfoPath forms that there's no way to do it without knowing programming the other way, or without having some other kind of app. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense, Sean. All right. But no, I haven't seen users kind of get spoiled and expect that everywhere. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen that.
Well, I think if you're going to do a form, maybe not do it just for the change in the look sometimes. So like in your example, you changed it to purple and all that. Unfortunately, Ryan had to leave, but he could tell us other ways to make all the forms like certain colors, things like that, using CSS and branding. So if that's your only reason for changing the form, I would avoid it and try and find a different way to do it. So that would be one way to avoid having to change all of them, because if they just like the look of that one.
Yep. I mean, I worked with a customer recently who had a whole folder full of InfoPath form library forms that they had created. They hadn't put them in SharePoint yet. They're all just these company forms that they wanted people to fill out, and they're like, okay, so what do we do with these? How do we get these in SharePoint? And the first thing I said was, okay, so why did you use InfoPath? What's the point of using InfoPath for those? Because you might not have needed it, because I mean, I couldn't tell just by looking at the file names, but they might not have had, needed to have custom logic or anything like that. And she just told me, well, we just wanted to have certain colors and logos. So no, that would not be especially would not be a reason to use a form library form, because those are the ones that are going to be harder to upgrade, right, Tanya? And those are going to be the ones that are more of a pain down the road. So, oh goodness, don't get me started on the whole upgrade thing. Okay, so let me show you how to fix what we just did. So we went into that list, and then we got an error when a user tried to fill it out, because I had changed a setting in the list settings, but I had not made the form reflect those settings. So I go back and customize form, and wait and authenticate again. Please don't ask me again, please. Next time I'm just going to use that little quick publish button at the top left so that I don't have to keep reopening. Pass that word 1. My VM. Okay, one or more fields in the SharePoint list have changed. Do you want InfoPath to update the set of available fields? You may need to modify your form view and add or remove or update the updated fields. This is going to happen anytime you add, remove, and change fields in the list from the list settings. So there, I just clicked yes. So now my assigned to box should have so now it says people only. So now it reflects the changes that were made in SharePoint. So I'll go ahead and drop some of these on here. Not going to do predecessors because that's the one that it told me that there was an issue with, I think. Or maybe it was related items. Anyway, I'm just going to leave that one out, and I'm going to merge these cells together like that. Okay, so as sort of a recap of some of the stuff up here in the ribbon, you have, you know, modifying text and fonts and font colors. You could really get in the weeds with that if you really. I usually just like to pick a theme from the ones that they have and not like go into like fill this box yellow and fill this box green and then make this text blue, and then, you know, you could just spend hours doing that. So. But that's how you can do it if you want to, and you have alignment and things like that, and your controls. So what happens if I take one of these controls and I drop it onto my form? So let me show you. See, what I've showed you so far was the existing fields that we have in our list and putting those on the form. So I'm going to go ahead and add a row here, and let's say I want to have a drop-down list box. I can just drag it onto the form. Oops, I can just put my cursor where I want it to be and put the drop-down list box. So as soon as I click that, it's going to ask me some additional information about it. Do I want this to be a choice box where I'm typing in what the choices are, or do I want to do a lookup, and that would be like a lookup field because it needs to know what type of column to create behind the scenes in SharePoint. So I'll just say, put some color names in here, I don't know. This definitely takes longer to edit than the one if I would have just done it in the SharePoint list, right? All right, and then it puts my drop-down box, and it just calls it field 1. So if you are adding fields from up here, then it's just going to say field 1, field 2, field 3, blah blah blah. So you still have to go name those. So I'll say I want this one to be a checkbox, and that one's field 2. So it shows you what kind of field it is, and it shows you a little icon of what it is, but I haven't named it yet. So the thing that I think that the problem and what makes it take longer to do it this way is that first I put the box on the form, and then I have to go name it, and then I have to go type the label on it. If you just create them all ahead of time in the SharePoint list, then they already have the names, and when you drag them onto the form, the name just appears next to them. Does that make sense? So field 1, now I have to go open that, and I'm going to say favorite color. So you can actually put a name and a display name for each field as you do it. And then cannot be blank means it's required. And then, again, you can have default values in here. Your default values can even be functions inside of here as well, which is kind of fancy. You don't really get that in just whenever in the list settings when you're creating a field, or you don't have the ability to have like a more dynamic default value like that. So that would be only in InfoPath. So that's favorite color, and that's going to be, I'll just call that other. And that's a yes or no. So, and then again, of course, since I put them on here before they had a name, then I have to go type the color, blah, 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 and etc. So I'm going to go ahead and show you another, I'm going to do this quick publish thing up here so that it actually publishes my changes to SharePoint so that it fixes, like when people are filling it out, now they're filling out, it's fixed for them and they can see the corrected form. But now I'm going to show you how to put a button on here, because a lot of times when people are filling out a form, they like to just have a button at the bottom instead of that having to go to the ribbon at the top. So we can make a button do the same thing that just the little save button at the top left would do. So I'll go ahead and have button as one of the things I can insert. I also have picture button. Oh, those are so cool. Let's do a picture button. So when I do a picture button, that's actually just going to give me a placeholder, and I have to have a picture. So when I open this and go to the properties, I have to go browse and put a picture in here to determine what, and I can say, I'll go back to the properties, I can say what's the picture going to be, and if they hover over it, I can have a different picture. So you can get really fancy with this. I've seen some buggy things with the pictures, so I found the way around them is I go into this little resource files thing. I haven't done anything in this data tab yet because that's much more advanced, but for the pictures, I like to put them in this resource files folder, which lets me reference them from, like, you know, to insert them on the form or use them in a picture button. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and add my pictures this way. So I'll go to my downloads, my Metro, and get my little, see what those look like. That doesn't help at all, does it? I can't see what those are. I'm gonna get, I know I've got one that's got like two different ones, and it's the light and the light and the dark one and stuff like that, but I'm gonna go ahead and just do, got one called Submit Hover. What kind of order are these things in? Hold on, let me put them in order. Sort by name. It's because I'm in the server here that it's not, you know, showing them correctly. So I'm going to put submit and submit hover in here. So I think that those are the ones that go together that I created for something else. Click OK. And then once I've added them into resource files up here, then I'll be able to go just pick it. And it's got, so if I did browse and just picked it like that, it would have like this big, long, ugly, cryptic name, and you wouldn't be able to tell what's what. So now I've got a submit and a submit hover. Click OK. Isn't that cool? Isn't that pretty? It looks so professional. People will think you hired a developer, and they think that you have all these like really advanced skills. So I want every form in my company to have a big, pretty submit form, right? So, like he was saying, your user is going to get spoiled, and they're going to want every form to have a nice, pretty professional button on it. But so I can shrink that or whatever I want to do. It just kind of starts getting more granulated when you start shrinking it. But as I'm creating my form, I don't have to go publish it and go back into SharePoint every time. I can use this little button up here. It's a preview. It's also on my Home tab. It's a preview button up here. It's also F5. So I'll preview this, and now I can see what it's going to look like when people are filling it out. Isn't that awesome? So I can hover over this and choose Submit, and then click Submit to submit it. The button doesn't do anything yet, though. So I added the button to the form, but it doesn't actually do anything. It's just visual so far. So you have to actually make your button do something. So when I double-click on the button, this little action thing up here is very important. So when I double-click to select this, I'm in the Control Tools Properties tab up here, and this is where I get to define what the action is going to be. So that's where I'm going to say Submit. All right, so I can say submit. I can create a button that does a new record. I can do all these different things, but this is just a absolute beginner's course, so I'm just going to show you how to make it submit. So it's going to do a submit, and then I'll go ahead and publish that. Now, also, what if you put your form out here and people don't like it, or people are confused and they're just not ready for it? Well, you can get rid of it, and you can get rid of it, but then keep it so that you can just turn it right back on if you want to. So look at this. In my list settings, form settings, it's important to know that this is here. So I can go to form settings, and then in there I'm going to have modify the existing InfoPath form, and this is another place where I can launch InfoPath from, just to go right back into that designer. Or I can flip back to using the default SharePoint form, and I can choose whether I want to delete the InfoPath form from the server. So I'm just going to say use the default SharePoint form, and now when I go to the list, I'm back to, oops, I'm not back to it. It's supposed to be back to the default form. You can refresh that. Not sure why that didn't do that. It used to. In previous versions of SharePoint that worked. Okay, so there's my default form, and now I didn't lose anything. I can go back to my form settings and just customize the current form using Microsoft InfoPath, and then I get my form back. All right. Okay, if you've got multiple content types in your list, oh, good grief. If you've got multiple content types in your list, I'm going to go ahead and add one more just so you can see what the difference is after I authenticate 500 times. To show you what that interface would look like. So I only have one content type. So this is getting a little bit more advanced because some of you who are beginners might not have content types. But if we have multiple content types in a list, you're going to see something different. So that's why I want you to see what this looks like. That way you'll be able to see, well, my screen doesn't look like Laura's, and you'll know why. So I'll just stick this other content type in here. And now when I go to form settings, it usually lists both content types there, and it says, do you want to, basically you get to pick which content type you want to customize the form for. So I'm not sure why it didn't show me that, but maybe that content type that I picked was some obscure one that doesn't allow you to do that. But I'm not going to authenticate yet again. So I already have it open. All right. Any questions? We have 4 minutes. I know that there are 18 of you out there. I can see you out there. I'm going to, so I went over some, let me recap while I'm waiting for you guys to type some questions. We talked about how to go in here and customize the form, and we talked about this, just the design surface and how to get around in there and how to just move stuff around, drag stuff around, just type in here and change some font, just do some visual things in here. And we talked about what the controls are and how you can put them wherever you want to on the form, but you have to make sure that they have names here. Whatever controls you add, they're going to become fields, columns in your list. Let's see, Jonathan says, does the custom input form follow the list when a list template is created? Yes, it does. So if I go and save this list as a template and go use it somewhere else, the form will follow it and it'll be fine. Even when you upgrade from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, it just works. Like, it's fine. And we just recently did that with some forms that I was using, and I was kind of worried about them, and didn't have to do anything. The forms work perfectly fine from 2010 to 2013 as well. Did that make sense? Hopefully that answered your question. Cool. So yeah, you can create a template and then just use it in multiple places. So then we talked about how to get around in here, and then we talked about the fields pane over here. And then an important thing that tends to trip people up, again, is having the settings and making sure that they match the settings for your fields and your list of fields. It has to match your InfoPath form. So when you change stuff in here, you have to go and at least open the form up and click that Save and Publish button to publish the updated changes to it. Also, you have the ability to go into form settings and flip back to that basic form if you want to later. And then we have 2 minutes left, so while I'm waiting to see if anybody has any more questions, real quick, Joelle's going to be doing the more advanced one next week with form library forms. It's going to have all these additional things you do in there just to make them function, but they have a lot more advanced functionality in them. A couple of things that I didn't get a chance to go into that are thoroughly covered in my InfoPath book are this concept of rules. So I'm not going to go into rules, I'm just going to tell you that they exist. But I mean, I could literally spend probably a whole week just digging around in here and showing you all this neat stuff that you can do in InfoPath. But rules are awesome. Rules mean I can select a field or control or button or anything in here, and I can define all the things that I want it to do when I click on it or when I change it. So when I when I click a submit button, I can define, or when I change a value, I can define what I want to happen with it. So as soon as I change the status, I want to maybe set another field to some other value. I want to go query some other list for some specific data. I want to send data, have like connected web parts and all this fanciness. I want to send data to another web part. I can make things change color according to a certain thing. So like priority, I can do a formatting rule, and I can say if priority is equal to, and I'm going to do like high. Oops, it says it has a 1 in front of it, I think. If priority is equal to high, then make the font show as red. Or if something than hide an entire control. So like that concept that we're talking about where they had an international box where they want to say if it was international or not, you could have a whole bunch of other fields in here and they're just set to be hidden unless someone checks the box to say it's international. So again, you can just go bonkers. You can do all kinds of neat stuff. So let's see if that priority thing worked that I just did. Yep, it changed it to red. Cool. So yeah, I encourage you guys to go try it out and come see our Power Hour next week with the more advanced stuff with the form libraries. And I guess we're done for the day. And thanks everybody for me. Stop sharing my screen. Thanks everybody for coming. And again, you can go look at all of our Power Hours and YouTube. And see you next time. Bye.